Father Fabio, today I am building my old age, which is what I hope to be, an old man Diana. I hope I don't die young. But I'm building my old age now. How? In my physical structure, I'm helping myself to age better, to have better quality in my diet, in my habits, right? To be a man of prayer, to be a man who enjoys reading and reflection. What does that mean? We become sharper, my friends. I always say I started writing early, but if I could go back in time today, I think I would publish my first book at 50 years old. Why? Because after 50, your lucidity to look at the past is much greater. We regret less, right? What we said, because you'll be more centered. It's a moment in your life where you have more tools to analyze, more maturity, more wisdom. That is, if we live well, if we build a future moment well, the future in the present moment. Maturing is much more than aging. You can have an 80-year-old man who is immature, because what is maturity? Maturity is not the accumulation of time in us, but the accumulation of experiences. When we don't discover wisdom in the process of life, we will have a person without grace, without discourse, without much to say, without much to add. If I could have an institution that could take care of someone, I would choose to take care of the elderly. I have immense pleasure in being with old people. Why? Because I've always been like that since I was a child. My mother always says that. Since I was little, I like to talk to older people because it's very interesting to hear about life, to see it truly lived. It's a very concrete literature, right? A person telling their story, telling their life story, telling their past, how it was, how it ceased to be, how it changed. That is very enriching. And when I listen to the elderly, I see clearly. I realize how crucial wisdom is for the quality of old age, because it's good to talk to a person, you know? In fact, we all need to find this. We know it through life. Because a wise person is someone who has a little more than intelligence. Intelligence to solve a mathematical problem. Many of us have that. But often when it comes to a life issue, looking at it with depth, looking at it with insight, intelligence alone is not enough. That's where we can distinguish between someone who is very intelligent and someone who is wise. Sometimes we find someone very intelligent and very wise. Sometimes we find someone very intelligent but not so wise. Or sometimes we find someone very wise but not so intelligent. Have you ever heard of Father Darcy? Father Darcy was a priest who, according to tradition, according to what has reached us, pleasure in being with old people. Why? Because I've always been like that since I was a child. My mother always says that. Since I was little, I like to talk to older people because it's very interesting to hear about life, to see it truly lived. It's a very concrete literature, right? A person telling their story, telling their life story, telling their past, how it was, how it ceased to be, how it changed. That is very enriching. And when I listen to the elderly, I see clearly. I realize how crucial wisdom is for quality of old age. Because it's good to talk to a person, you know? In fact, we all need to find this. We know it through life. Because a wise person is someone who has a little more than intelligence. Intelligence to solve a mathematical problem. Many of us have that. But often when it comes to a life issue, looking at it with depth, looking at it with insight, intelligence alone is not enough. That's where we can distinguish between someone who is very intelligent and someone who is wise. Sometimes we find someone very intelligent and very wise. Sometimes we find someone very intelligent but not so wise. Or sometimes we find someone very wise but not so intelligent. Have you ever heard of Father Darcy? Father Darcy was a priest who, according to tradition, according to what has reached us, was a man who had great difficulty learning. He had great difficulty learning Latin. He had difficulty learning theology. And what did he do? He heard confessions. But hearing confessions, that man who wasn't brilliant in intelligence was brilliant in wisdom, because advising a person requires a lot of wisdom. In fact, giving advice, interfering in someone else's life requires great wisdom. But where does this blessed wisdom reside? Where does it live? In the opportunity we have to build within ourselves a life. It resides in this opportunity. To find along the way what teaches us. The story I come into contact with which comes to live inside me. That life I encountered that moved me so much came to live inside me. That's accumulated wisdom, isn't it? When you don't just go through life in the old way, or through the lives of others, through the stories of people, you begin to collect the lived examples, the events, you extract that. It's like taking a sugar cane and extracting all the juice, because we know the sugar is there. It's as if we could then thoroughly crush this life we live so we can extract every last drop of flavor. And then we keep that inside ourselves. We become wiser as we have an open heart to live, to be able to bring the lessons that this life offers and accommodate them within ourselves, and use them as we go along, avoiding the same mistakes of the past. So my father made such and such a mistake. So today I'm going to change my attitude. Yesterday I was talking about this with a friend of mine. He was saying to me, "Father, is it true that we carry the sins of our ancestors?" "My son, I wouldn't say that we carry the sins of our ancestors. We may carry in our DNA, in our constitutions, in our psychic configurations, the influences of the mistakes, the consequences of the bad things that happened in the past. But now we can balance that and allow a different way to exist within us. I don't want the mistakes of my ancestors to determine my life. I know they acted that way. But I don't want to continue acting the same way. That's the only way we can break, right? That chain of curses, often, that we carry within our family structures. So how do I do it? I won't do to my children what my father did to me. This is a rule you can adopt. So, if your father made mistakes with you, if he was very harsh with you, if you know that his attitude, was it misused? Did it hurt you a lot? You will try to purify that action so that you only extract its value. So being rude is a value. Sometimes it is. But you can be different. You can be tough. Not in education, which is with children. You need to be very tough many times. But you don't need to be aggressive. Your toughness and attitude in demanding certain behaviors doesn't need to be an aggression against your child's life. So you purify, you modify, you accumulate, you exercise the wisdom that the accumulation of history has brought. And then you can grow old, right? You become wiser, you know? We make our experience, over time, always favorable in our attitude. The life we have lived doesn't need to condemn us, even if we have more than enough reasons to want to condemn ourselves, because we may have made more mistakes than successes. But we don't need to let the mistakes prevail. We can very well select this, throw away what wasn't worthwhile, and start in a different way. Embrace this new time, this new opportunity. Today, for example, every day you can interpret yourself this way. Today I am just beginning. I don't have to die condemned for what I didn't do right or for what I did wrong, right? I don't need to die condemning myself for the past. So today I embrace the opportunity of a new time in my life. It's very important for us to change, to evolve, to advance, to purify everything that is within us. Why? Because by purifying ourselves, time transforms into wisdom. Age transforms into maturity, because maturing is a great objective of every human being. Being mature means being more coherent, being more whole, so that we can live life with a little more quality. Father Fabio, it is with immense pleasure that I write, and I hope to be guided by your words about what I am feeling in this new phase of my life. In fact, I consider that I am currently experiencing an existential crisis. I feel like I'm losing my sparkle and vivacity. From the time I was 20 years old, now in my 50s, it's hard to face the difficulties of life. And this is influencing my relationship with my husband. Father, how can I face the stage of life? I'm from Manaus. Her name is Darcy. So my daughter, the process of aging in human life has to be prepared for day by day, right? I always say that we have to be very careful about what we are in our youth, because what we are in our youth will be accentuated in old age. So it's good because the qualities become even more qualified, right? The gifts of youth, especially the intellectual gifts, those that you sought maturity for. It brings a wonderful way of understanding the world, doesn't it? Intelligence becomes sharper, wisdom. It seems that it accompanies us a little more. So much so that a good writer is an age writer, right? We know, and some people take this very seriously, that it's very dangerous to write a book in your youth, because the thoughts of youth, the opinions of youth tend to change a lot, and later you even feel ashamed of what you said in your youth. But To qualify these qualities, we need to be careful, so that in the management of time that passes, we are able to do what is good and make it even better. But we need to be very careful because it also happens that the flaws of youth will become very accentuated in old age. So look at yourself as you are today. If you're already a difficult person, prepare to fight with yourself, not against yourself, but with yourself. Prepare for the struggle to gradually reduce what is burdensome for you. Now, in your way of being, find a way to get rid of your excesses, of everything that harms you as a person, because this, without a doubt, will cost you dearly in old age. I don't know if what you call an existential crisis, Darcy, is this inability to manage the flaws that weigh a little more today, the insecurities that are inherent in life, aren't they? We know that old age places us in a cycle very similar to childhood. The insecurities that are characteristic of the beginning of life are all there at the end. I even have a character in my book, Women of Steel and Flowers, who says exactly that. I am in need of the same things as newborns, but they don't have the courage to ask. I see this in my elderly mother at home, because she's more fragile, she's more insecure, situations that she used to manage a little better. She can't handle alone anymore. So we need to provide the support now, you and I, if we're going to be very attentive, so that we can live through these different phases of life, being aware of them, because it's not a problem to suffer from insecurities, but we need to be aware of them. It's funny. Every problem in life becomes less burdensome when we are aware of it. Why? Because consciousness is a tool that we use to our advantage. If you are not aware of your flaw, if you deny it all the time, it will be difficult for those around you. But it will be especially difficult for you to deal with this flaw because you haven't brought consciousness to it. What is consciousness? This light that stays lit inside us to help us identify who we are, what we think, what we did. When I say, I wasn't aware that I hurt you, what am I saying? There was a lack of personal understanding to realize that my action was harmful. And sometimes we do that. But from the moment I know I hurt someone, consciousness is awakened. So, because I am now aware that I hurt someone, I cannot continue hurting them. I have to do everything to prevent that from happening again. And that's why personal growth is directly linked to a person's ability to be conscious of their actions. It's interesting because it ties into the theology of sin. What is sin? It's something that is already clear, through the awareness that it is a mistake. So, we often commit a sin without knowing we were sinning, because you weren't sinning if you weren't conscious of the act. That's why we are taught from a young age to respect orders, to obey our parents, to obey the rules. Because after we know what is right and what is wrong, it becomes a mistake, a sin, let's say, to break that rule, but as long as you don't know, it's not a sin. There is no attribution of guilt. There may even be an attribution of responsibility, but from the moment you know, you will have to act differently, because before you were ignorant. That's why we need to preach the gospel, that is, to light the light of human consciousness to the knowledge of Jesus, because from the moment you know Jesus, you have power and your life is transformed. It is with him that you begin a process of becoming like him. So what we need to do, Darcy, is to become aware of each new phase of our lives, to look at this new time, because you're not an old woman, you are 50 years old, and you still have many good things to do, and you need to open the doors of this new time, take advantage of, and live each phase of this life well. Because where is the anguish? It's when a person is 50 years old and wants to live the realities that she should have lived at 30. You can even live something you didn't want to live at 30, but be careful not to impose a burden on yourself that, at 50, you are no longer able to carry. This phase of life will demand a posture from you that perhaps you didn't have to have when you were 30. So this wisdom of identifying what is appropriate for each time helps us a lot in managing the final result of life. And now, on Monday, I want to thank all the people who were with me in Sao Paulo at Livraria Cultura for the launch of my book. I had a very interesting opportunity there. A lady came up to me and said, "Father, today I came here to get your autograph and celebrate my retirement." She left today. She joked with me, right? I know you always said you wanted to retire. I really wanted to since I was a child. I always thought it was beautiful to retire. People would ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I would say, "Retired." And then I celebrated with her. It was Wow, how wonderful. She said, Father, but I'm so afraid of this new time. I said, No, not at all. Take advantage of it to read all the books you couldn't read. Take advantage of it to take the courses you couldn't take. Take advantage of it to take the trips you couldn't afford. Even if you don't have much money, save a little, pay in 30 installments. Go. Go do it. Go fulfill your dreams. If you have the opportunity, now that your children are all grown up, you don't have direct obligations anymore. Go live your life well. Make the most of this time. Don't waste it. She said, But I have to help my son. That's it. Let her help to the extent she can. Don't live his life. Go live your own life. Because this is fundamental. People, we won't have another opportunity. Living today well is a matter of responsibility. Be faithful to this phase of your life. It was possible for me, you know? Who do you want to be? When I grow up, I used to say retire, and then I celebrated with her. It was, wow, how beautiful. Then she said, Father, but I'm so afraid of this new time. I said, No, not at all. Take advantage of this time to read all the books you couldn't read. Take advantage of this time, take the courses you couldn't take. Take advantage of this time, take the trips you couldn't afford. Even if you don't have much money, save a little, pay in 30 installments. Go do it. Go realize your dreams. If you have the opportunity now. Okay, all the advice is given. There are no more direct obligations. Go live your life well. Make good use of this time. Don't waste it. But I have to help my son. That's it. Let her help as much as she can. Don't live their lives. Go live your own phase of life. Because that's fundamental. People, we won't have another opportunity. Living today well is a matter of responsibility. Be faithful to the phase of your life. If it's a phase to study, study. If it's a phase to work, work. If it's a phase to rest, rest. We even live this in our daily lives, right? If I'm very honest, if I have 2 hours to rest, I'm going to rest because I know that my daily life is no joke. It's a matter of living the phases of my day well. That's what we need, discipline. And Darcy, don't be afraid, my daughter, at 50 years old, you still have a lot ahead of you. You don't have to live with this anxiety. Substitute anxiety with awareness. Illuminate your heart and illuminate your head so that you can look at each day without anxieties. What can I do today in this phase of my life? What can I accomplish today? Occupy our minds, my people, with good things. It's a very effective way to avoid depression, unnecessary anguish, anxiety, because the devil camps in an empty mind. The Lord be with you. He is among us.